Good evening and welcome to Wednesday Night Bible Study. I'm Craig Dubinsky and we are at Enola First Church of God. And I want to welcome all of you at home who are tuning in with Facebook Live and those of you that will watch this on Sunshine TV YouTube. Thank you for joining us. I am looking out across the room and I see a lot of hungry, eager Bible students. And that's exciting to me because as a pastor, there's nothing I love better than questions and Bible study. So let's get busy and let's get right into it. If you would open up your Bible to Revelation 17, we're going to look at verse 1 in just a moment. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 1. And I'm going to ask Pastor Joe if he'd open us with a word of prayer, please.
Father, we just thank you for this night, and we thank you for your precious word. Father, we just ask, as we study your word, that you would open it up to us and that you would teach us from it. And Father, just be with us and bless us as we study your word. We ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Joe. Okay, I'm looking at Revelation 17 and I'm reading verse 1. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk." I did verses 1 and 2. Now, you'll notice it says the seven bowls. Little review. In the Revelation, we've already talked about three major judgments. And can someone tell me what those three major judgments are? It's not in your notes. You're not looking at it. We did it months ago.
Seals, trumpets, and bowls.
Yes, seals, trumpets, and bowls.
I was trying to think of ST.
STB.
B.
STB bowls. Yeah.
STB bowls. So I gave you a little memory device to help you remember. It said STB, not what?
STP.
Not STP, not STP, which is the
Is it some type of oil or
Racer's edge.
racer's edge. Okay, for high performance engines, I was a mechanic in the 70s. I rebuilt engines. We used STP in all our engines. STP is the racer's edge. You can get it at Walmart or any high performance store. Still sold. STP, the racer's edge. Remember STB, seals, trumpets, and bowls. Now, what's that have to do with Revelation 17? Revelation 17 is one piece, one part of the bowl judgments. Remember, there were three phases or three separate things. There were several bowl judgments, and Revelation 17 and 18 is focusing on one aspect, just one aspect of the bowl judgments, and that is the judgment of what? You should know this from last week, from Who's Who. What is it all about? I said it's either this or that. Some people say it's that, and I say it's this. Well, the that was Rome, and the this is Babylon. That's it. That's what we're talking about. Okay? That's where we are. So, let's go back to verse 1. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came to me and said. Now, I'm using John MacArthur. I love John MacArthur's work. I'm using Revelation, the Christian's Ultimate Victory. I highly recommend this book, the study guide for all believers. And he gives us a couple of insights, and we're going to walk through them. So we're in the middle of page 2. And notice it says verses 1 to 15, Babylon's power and luxury. Everybody see that? Do you have that, Peter, or I don't think you do. You just have the who's who.
Right.
Pam, how would you like to do me a favor?
Go upstairs.
Yeah, run upstairs and grab me. Does anybody else need Bible study number 15? Or do you all have it?
I have it.
Does anybody else need a copy? Pam, how about grabbing a couple of these, like 2 or 3 of them?
Now run. He
The
did
one
not
with the
say-
lion on it.
I see you run. Come
Why
on.
you have to pick on Pam?
because she's done this with me before. Actually, she learned this in Bible college in the 70s.
Nico would be so mad at you.
So she already knows it.
That is Nico's best friend.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad for Nico.
He looked at it yesterday.
I'm not picking on anybody. Pam just loves to be a helpmeet because she is a biblical helpmeet, and I help her. She helps me. We help one another.
He looked for her yesterday.
Did he?
When we were at.
Is
the
that right?
women's bus.
Okay. So anyway, let me go on while we're waiting for that, and you'll get that, Peter, in just a minute. So it says 7 angels. Now listen to John. John MacArthur, regarding 7 angels, says the reference to these angels links chapter 17 and 18 with the bowl judgments, chapter 16. I just said that. That's why I reminded you of STB, which extend to the second coming of Christ. Chapter 17 and 18 focuses on one aspect of those bowl judgments, the judgment of class
Babylon.
Babylon. The judgments already described are identified as targeting the final world system, Keith. Keith, the final world system, because we were talking about that last time, and you'll see how that works out a little bit more. Okay, so on your sheet, you might want to write next to 7 angels, final world system, or final world power, or final world kingdom. All of it works. Whatever you want to write there is okay, either or. Everybody with me? Then it says in verse 1, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute. Some versions have the great harlot. Does anybody have something different than that? Okay, good. So, what is that? John MacArthur says, great harlot. Prostitution frequently symbolizes idolatry or religious apostasy. Prostitution frequently symbolizes idolatry or religious apostasy. Do you know what apostasy is? Falling away. It's kind of like the person who's very near and dear in their faith, then all of a sudden they don't go to church anymore. They don't read their Bible anymore. They don't talk about spiritual things anymore. What happened? They fell away. That's apostasy, falling away, spiritual apostasy. And that's what this is about. And then John says Nineveh, Tyre, and even Jerusalem also are depicted. Thank you, Pam. They were asking me why I was picking on you, Pam. Tell the class if I'm picking on you.
No, I'm used to it.
That's not what you wanted, was it?
That's not the answer I was looking for.
I sang that, but
Scratch that from the camera. We'll have to edit this one. No, seriously. You know what? When you walked out the door, and I told her that you've learned all this because we learned this in Bible college in the 70s. So you not only know it, but we've been through it together before. Because that's where we met, and that's how we got started. And you know, she's heard more about Babylon than anything, because you know this was a big deal in Bible college. Okay, so thank you for being my helpmeet, and helping me as I also what?
Help you.
No, help you.
You better just stop and get back to the study.
You will be in trouble.
Okay, since the class is picking on me tonight, Pam, tell the class who cooked dinner tonight.
Lukey.
Our neighbor brought over pot roast for us.
Yeah, but that was secondary. Who cooked dinner before the doorbell rang?
Oh, we were going to spaghetti, so he did.
Who cooked dinner before the doorbell
He
rang?
did.
Okay.
We made spaghetti.
Who cooks dinner every day at our house?
Oh.
Well, I cook 99 to 4,400% of the time. Kind of like Ivory. You know, it's not pure, but it's pretty close to pure. So, yeah, so because it's Wednesday night, I'd made spaghetti, and like she said, our neighbor blessed us by ringing her doorbell and brought us pot roast and chocolate cake with peanut butter icing. They had company today, so they brought us some dinner.
Where's the cake?
There was only 2 pieces now. I'm not gonna cut 2 pieces into 32 slices. Okay, so anyway, back to Revelation here. So anyway, Peter, you've got that, you're on page 2, we're at the Great Harlot, and I just read about those 3 cities. Now, who are my ESV study Bible people tonight? How many of you have it? 1, 2 of you? Okay. Okay, because I'm gonna have you read a little bit in a minute. So let's look at chapter 14 and verse 8. Chapter 14 and verse 8. Somebody read 14:8 for me.
The second angel followed and said, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, which made all the nations drink the maddening wine of her adultery.
Okay, good. So there you see Babylon mentioned again. Okay. And Pam, would you like to read the footnote on 14:8 for me?
Another angel announced that Babylon is following. Before Babylon even appears.
Don't forget to read the little part before it.
Okay, echoing Isaiah 21:9. Before Babylon even appears in the narrative, Revelation 16:19, 17, 1-18, as ancient Babylon has carried Judah into captivity, so in John's day, Rome was a pagan power with dominion over the kings of the earth. 17:18, that oppressed Christ's people. 17:6, yet Revelation's Babylon transcends Rome, since its fall awaits the end of history. 15:1, 16:7-19.
That's good right there. So you see, this kind of reviews a little bit what we did last week, because we talked about those 2 views about it being Babylon or Rome, and the ESV Study Bible scholars are making it clear that Rome was the dominant power in the 1st century, but Babylon kind of supersedes it. And then John MacArthur mentions 3 cities that are well known for blatant, gross idolatry. And they are listed on page 2, and we're going to look at them. The first one is Nineveh. Look at Nahum 3 for me. And you know Nineveh, right? Everybody know Nineveh? Why do you know Nineveh? Why is Nineveh so important?
Jonah.
Jonah what? Tell me more.
He disobeyed, he didn't want to do that, and he ended up with.
A lot of these people don't know all the stories, so say a little more. Don't want to do what? We know the
He
story, but not
didn't
everybody
wanna-
does, and the people on YouTube don't know the story, so tell
He
us.
did not want to go and evangelize the people. He did not want to go and save them. He just thought they were unsavable.
Okay, he thought they were unsavable. Okay, and were they?
I don't think so.
What, do you remember the response? What kind of response he got? Is it, I'm not putting you on the spot. Anybody remember the response? What happened?
After he family went, they repented.
Yeah, they did repent, and so there was some spiritual change.
Yeah.
And then he was mad about that.
Then he was mad. Then he
Yeah, well, we're not gonna get into Jonah, because that's beyond the scope of what I wanna do. What I wanna do is, you need to know who Nineveh is, because Nineveh is the capital of the what empire? You must know this. The Assyrian Empire, and the Assyrian Empire was the #1 empire against Israel in that day. In the day of that writing, okay? Just as Rome was the oppressing power of Israel in the 1st century, the Assyrian Empire that Nineveh is the capital of, and it says that on your sheet, by the way, it says Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. So we're going to read chapter 3, and I'm going to read verses 1 to 4. Woe to you, woe to the bloody city all full of lies and plunder, no end to the prey, the crack of the whip and the rumble of the wheel, galloping horse and bounding chariot, horsemen charging, flashing sword and glittering spear, hosts of slain, heaps of corpses, dead bodies without end, they stumble over the bodies. And all for the countless whorings of the prostitute, graceful and of deadly charms, who betrays nations with her whorings and peoples with her charms. Now, those of you that are listening to this on YouTube and also on Facebook and the class here, we're not talking about sexuality at all. Sexuality is used in a metaphorical, figurative way, and prostitution is used to speak of idolatry. So let's remember that. And I need a reader for 3-4 footnote. Who's going to read 3-4 in the ESV Study Bible? Kayla, would you like to read it?
I don't have his Bible, I have the life application.
Oh, you have the other one. Okay. Do you have one, Bass? Okay. So we only have one. We have two, mine and Pam's. Pam, would you want to read it, or you want me to read it?
You read it.
Okay, I'll read it. Reasons for judgment, the wickedness of Nineveh. This verse uses figurative language to present reasons for the destruction of Nineveh's whorings. As the capital of the idolatrous Assyria, Nineveh continually engaged in many violations of God's will. Graceful and deadly charms, Nineveh, with its power and wealth, exerted a corrupting influence throughout the Near East and betrays the monarchy based in Nineveh did not hesitate to use treachery and deceit to achieve its aims. You understand what we're doing here? We're not talking about a country. We're talking about an empire that involves many, many countries, or thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. Okay, we're talking about the ancient Near East. Does that make sense when we're talking about Nineveh? And you see how that works? Look with me at Isaiah 23. Now we're going to go to Tyre. Isaiah 23. Isaiah 23. Isaiah 23 and verses 1 through 18, or excuse me, of just verse 17. Isaiah 23 and verse 17. We're just going to read one verse, and then we're going to look at a couple of footnotes. Who'd like to read 23:17 for me? Isaiah 23:17. Who will read it? Thank you, Keith.
At the end of 70 years, the Lord will deal with Tyre. She will return to her hire as a prostitute and will ply her trade with all the kingdoms on the face of the earth.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to read a couple of footnotes on this city. I'm going to read in the ESV Study Bible 23, 1 to 18, and it says, the fifth oracle concerns judgment, the redemption of Tyre, here characterized as the world's prostitute, the world's idolatrous system, okay? And then the footnote on 23, 1 to 14 in the ESV Study Bible says, Tyre, a successful port on the Phoenician coast and the, quote, merchant of the nations, end quote, is humbled by God. So we're looking at the example of some cities that were well known for their corrupt influence and their idolatrous practices that led the Near East deeper and deeper into idolatry and farther from God. Okay? So one more city that is likened to be a city of harlotry of idolatry is Jerusalem. And that's a little surprising to me, because Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. Jerusalem is the city that the city of David is part of, and Jerusalem is a city that I've been to 3 times, led 3 tours. I love the city, I love the people, but God points to Jerusalem at various times in the Old Testament as being a place that has left God, has divorced itself from God, has abandoned God, and disregarded God altogether. And look at Isaiah 1, and you'll see that. I want you to know that idolatry is a very, very serious sin, and it's no small thing, and it's just as prominent and prevalent today as it was at any time in history. Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 21 we're looking at, and could someone read that for me, please? Dolores?
How has the faithful city become a harlot? It was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers.
Quite a change, isn't it? Quite a contrast, wouldn't you say? Once was a faithful city, full of justice, righteousness lodged in her, but now full of murderers. Quite a difference. Now, I'm going to read the footnote in the ESV Study Bible for 121, and that says, their covenant, that is Israel's covenant with God, was comparable to a marriage. To depart from faithfulness to Him, that is, to depart from faithfulness from God, is a more shocking sin than people realize. Now, all of you that know the New Testament and know Paul's theology know that Paul likened the mystery of the church to marriage. We all know that from Ephesians 5 and 6. Don't we? Aren't we all familiar with that? Are you aware that in the Old Testament, God was considered Israel's husband? Are you aware of that? Not all believers are. Let's read it. Let's look at it. And that would be Isaiah 54, and that's verse 5. Isaiah 54 and verse 5. This is an important, very important passage. I believe that Paul, being a Pharisee of the Pharisee when his name was Saul, and being an educated man in the letters of the Jewish law, would know what book, if he didn't know any book from the Old Testament? The major prophet. And who would that be in first century Judaism? It would be Isaiah. Okay, not that Isaiah is the only one, because he isn't, and not because he's important and none of the others are important, but, just like Christians today, what's the number one book in the New Testament that almost all Christians know some of it and quote from it frequently? What would that book be? John.
Yeah.
Well, a Jew in the Old Testament and a Jew in the New Testament, he or she would be quoting, referring to, alluding to a lot from the Torah, the first 5 books, but the major prophet in Judaism in both Old Testament times and in New Testament times is the prophet Isaiah. It's 66 chapters, and he is one of 4 major prophets. Who are the others? Peter.
Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. These are the 4 major prophets of Judaism. And they're all important. But just like a Christian quotes John 3:16 or, other passages from John, the rabbinical schools would really emphasize the major prophets in training boys and young men, and Isaiah would be front and center in that. Peter?
Even Jesus quoted quite a bit from Isaiah, like when he said, "Today the prophecy has been fulfilled in your hearing." He was quoting Isaiah 61.
That's exactly right. So Peter is correct, and that would be, I think that's in Luke's gospel that he said that, if I remember right, where Jesus went into the synagogue and he read from Isaiah, and he said, "This day is this prophecy fulfilled in your ears." So Jesus most assuredly did quote from Isaiah, and I believe, and I don't know this is a fact, this is my opinion, I can't prove this, but where did Paul come up with likening the mystery of the church and likening it and using marriage as a metaphor for it? Well, obviously it came from God, because all scripture is given by inspiration of God, but he had a corollary, he had a precedent. And what is that precedent? You just read it. Because God was considered Israel's husband in Isaiah, just like Christ is the bridegroom for the bride, which is the church in the New Testament. Do you see how that works? Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that? Okay, good. Good. Okay, so let me read 54:5 footnote. The certainty of the promise of verse 4 rests in the person of God, who would have to stop being God in order for his promises to fail. Isaiah heaps words upon words to convey the all-sufficiency of God for his weak people. The all-sufficiency of God for his weak people. Okay, good. All right, so back to Revelation 17. We're still in verse 1. Then one of the seven angels who had seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters." Okay, seated on many waters. John MacArthur, regarding that, says this picture emphasizes the sovereign power of the harlot. The picture is of a ruler seated on a throne, ruling the waters, which symbolize the nations of the world. Now, if you remember this who's who we did last time, we went all through this because that's number 5 on your sheet. Remember, we identified many waters in verse 15 as the peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. Remember that from last time? So you see that. So on your sheet, it says on page 3, sits on many waters, and I have their global power, or if you want to write something there, you could write nations of the world. So we're not talking about God's judgment on Babylon being a city. We're talking about God's judgment on Babylon being a world power, and the judgment is not in the Near East only, but the judgment is where?
The whole world.
All over or everywhere, exactly. Good. All right, I think you got that. Any questions on that? Notice also it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality. John MacArthur says the harlot will ally herself with the world's political leaders, absorbed into the empire of Satan's false Christ. So this kings who committed fornication, it's not talking about literal kings like the King of England. We have a King of England. It's talking about the world leaders, okay, by whatever designation they go by, whether it's prime minister or whether it's, you have a prime minister in Germany, or it's king like in England, or president like it is in the United States. We're talking about all the world leaders by whatever name they go by. Does that make sense? So we see here global faithfulness to the false Christ, the counterfeit, and on my sheet, you know what else I wrote? The knockoff. I was in Turkey doing research for my dissertation. I'm on a ship sailing through the Strait of the Bosphorus, which goes from up to the Black Sea, and I had this young man come up to me in a trench coat on the boat, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, would you like to buy a watch?" And he opened up his coat, and he had all these watches. I'm thinking, this looks like New York City. I pastored a church in New York City. I know all about vendors in New York City. So he said, "I want to show you a watch." And he pulled a watch out and he says, "Do you know what this is? This is a Rolex. And I will give it to you for only 20 American dollars for a Rolex." Was that a real Rolex?
No.
Does anybody have any idea how much Rolexes go for?
Not $20.
Not $20
You
is
can't
right.
get a Timex for $20.
Does anybody know what a Rolex goes for?
Probably a couple grand,
$600 or
couple $1,000.
Couple thousand?
Yeah.
Any other answers? I don't really know because I didn't look it up, but I know it's a very expensive watch. And so I know that all the watches that he was carrying were all called what?
Knockoffs.
Knockoffs! Exactly. That's why I put knockoff on here, because I was thinking about that watch in
Or
Turkey.
hot.
What's that?
Or hot.
Well, they're hot knockoffs. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we see the kings of the earth committed idolatry, fornication, global faithfulness to the false Christ, the counterfeit, the knockoff. All right, any questions so far? Okay, so then it says in verse 2 in your Bible, "With whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers of the earth have become drunk." Now, I'm moving away from the text of the Bible. I want to ask you off text. Is the Bible, is the world, hear me now, pay attention to what I'm going to ask you. Is the world drunk today? Is the world drunk today?
Yeah.
Think about that, and then whatever answer you give me, you're going to tell me why or what you mean. Somebody got it? Is the world drunk today? Just a very basic question.
I think yes.
You say yes. Okay, can you tell me what it is, what you mean?
Because alcoholics only think of themselves. And all they think about is getting the next drink, and that's how the world is.
Okay, so you're taking, is the world drunk today in a literal way, which isn't legitimate, okay? She's thinking about alcohol and alcoholism is a problem. As a matter of fact, the worst and number one drug in America, according to the experts, the biggest problem, the biggest drug in America is not fentanyl, it is not heroin, it is not cocaine, it is not weed, it's alcohol. And alcohol is the only drug in all of them
It's not alcohol.
that's legal for pleasure. But it's the biggest problem. That's looking at it from a literal way, and that's fine. Someone else.
But I
Is
think
the
I
world-
think she was looking at it more than literal, because she was saying the selfishness of the world,
Yeah.
weren't you?
It was the next thing.
Yeah.
The next thing,
Like
the
a pig.
And she
selfish,
was considering materialism too.
Yeah.
selfishness,
They want more.
They want
Yeah.
more.
We want more of everything.
Yeah.
more of everything. Just like an alcoholic wants more alcohol.
Okay, well, that's the nature of addiction.
Yeah,
The nature of addiction is it's
you
addictive.
want more,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's very true.
yeah.
okay? I didn't miss that. I'm just trying to go get somewhere else, but that's all very, very true, and that's really good.
Yeah.
Is the world drunk today?
Yeah.
Drunk as if like they're not awake to see the truth.
They're not awake to see, they're drunk in the sense that they are intoxicated so that they can't see the truth. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that, but that's excellent. I'll take that, that's true. I got two things and you didn't get to either of them yet.
Power and control.
Power and control, that counts as one. There's one more yet. But hold on. Hang on, people. Take a deep breath, everybody. Come on. Breathe! Wow, you people are rushing me. Breathe. Settle down.
What is it, Craig? Tell us.
I already did. Pay attention. Okay, the world is crazed, I mean crazed, with pursuit of power.
Yeah.
Okay? And in our capitalistic system, and I'm not talking politics, and I'm not being critical, but in our capitalistic system, we are in a dog-eat-dog world system, and everybody is trying to get bigger, richer, and more powerful. Okay? So the addiction, Pat talked about alcohol, and she's right. You're talking about a different addiction, and that's the addiction of power. The world is power crazed. It really is. Okay? There's one more I'm thinking of. Is the world drunk today? It's drunk with alcohol, which Pat said, that's true. It's drunk with the addiction for power. That's true. It's deaf, dumb, and blind to the truth because it's drunk, which Vass said, and I believe that's true. One more. Power or...
You say money?
That's the one.
You say money.
Prosperity. Okay? The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. And the world is driven by prosperity and crazed with power. And the gods of this world, small g, are power, control, prosperity. And there's one more that's not as obvious that I see.
Oh.
What is it?
Autonomy?
Yeah. I don't want to say that yet because I want to get to that a little later in something else, but that's a good one. Autonomy. Vass?
Just like the sexual desire.
Insatiable desire.
No, sexual desire. How, like,
Sexual desire.
Everything you see now is like regarding sexual things, like what people wear. And,
Okay, that's another addiction, by the way.
Yeah.
Y'all know AA, right? Alcoholics Anonymous. Are you familiar with SA? Sexaholics Anonymous. I treat some sexaholics. Okay, sexual addiction is a real diagnosable American Psychiatric Association diagnosis. That's very, very true. I'm thinking of that in a little bigger context. We got the addiction for power, the addiction for prosperity, and another P, an addiction for,
Pleasure.
what is it?
Pleasure.
That's it.
Oh,
Pleasure.
wow, that's
Pleasure.
a good one.
Everybody
That's a good one.
seems, now, don't misunderstand
What are you
me.
getting at?
Pleasure is of God. I mean, God wants us to enjoy His creation, but what happens is some people who aren't believers turn pleasure into a god, and pleasure becomes the god of their idolatrous worship. They worship money, power, and pleasure. All I want to do is eat, drink, and be merry, have all the power and all the money, and that's all I want. That's all I want.
Yeah.
That's the mantra of the world. That's what the world wants. Give me the power, give me the money, and give me the pleasure, and I'm happy.
So true. So true.
I mean, isn't the world driven by those three things? And addiction with alcoholism and control,
Yeah.
and you mentioned autonomy, we're gonna get to that, cause that's gonna come out, I got 3 articles, but that's true too. So when we're talking about one world religion, some people, some Christians are like, well, could that be, could that be, could that be? Well, guess what? Wake up! It already is. It already is. Doesn't matter what nation you're. I did a little research on Dubai. How many of you know Dubai? Okay, in the UAE?
Yeah.
Okay, let me test your knowledge. How many of you think Dubai is a city?
No, it's a country.
1. Okay, nobody else. Pat, what were you gonna say?
It's a country.
It's not a country,
Well,
It's like,
but it's not a city either.
it's like interstate of a
It's not an
bigger-
interstate.
Is it an emirate?
Think of the country of UAE. What does UAE mean?
United Arab Republics.
No, United Arab Emirates.
Emirates.
Dubai is an emirate, and it's one of 7 emirates, and it's the largest of the 7 emirates. That's why the name of the country is UAE. It's the unification of 7 emirates. They don't call them cities, okay? And UAE is the country, okay? And I did a little research on this because I was studying Israel, and I was studying El Al Airlines, and I was studying the flights from Tel Aviv to Dubai, which are now being flown. And if you study Dubai, you'll find out that the god of Dubai, some of you are going to think, he's going to say Allah, he's going to quote the Quran, and I'm not. Study it, and you're going to find out what it is.
Money.
What is it?
Money.
Money? Okay, that is primary. It's the god of pleasure.
Oh.
And look it up. You'll be amazed what you'll see.
Have you ever been to Dubai?
No, I haven't.
I have.
Okay.
You go to the airport in Doha and it's like nothing you could ever describe. There's a park, there's a waterfall, there's a Louis Vuitton, there's all the high-end. It is not like any airport I've ever been in. I've been to Dubai,
The
so.
whole country, excuse me, I said country.
See,
The whole emirate,
I led you astray.
the whole emirate seems to be pushing the agenda of the ultimate in pleasure. That's what it seems to be.
It's like a pleasure empire then.
A pleasure empire.
Yeah.
And this is one of the 3 gods we just talked about. The god of power, the god of prosperity, and the god of pleasure. And there isn't one place on the planet that I know of that better illustrates pleasure than Dubai. Do you agree, Pat?
Yeah.
Do you agree, Joe?
He wasn't there.
Oh, okay. She must have left him home.
She was having pleasure without him.
It was on the trip she went on to Africa this month.
Oh, okay.
Very, very.
I didn't mean to start any marital problems here.
Greg, come on.
And most of the men have several wives too. That's why they think it's pleasurable. You see a guy in a white outfit and he has 2 or 3 women in, Are they called
One wive's
burqas?
enough.
are they burqas, whatever things it was, just,
What about the older ones?
Don't tell
That's
me.
crazy.
yeah, every man has, I'm telling you, I saw them all.
Couple wives.
Several mothers-in-law.
Joe can't.
Doris, did you have something you wanted to say?
No,
Can't
I
Joe
saw you
can't.
speaking to Keith.
No,
Well,
this
I
was,
said one wife is enough.
Tell
that was
Sandy.
Keith Gates that said that.
Dolores is a newlywed.
Getting back to the text, notice wine of her fornication, okay? By the way, does everybody got that? Everybody see how that works? The wine of her fornication. The harlot's influence will extend beyond the world rulers to the rest of mankind. The imagery does not describe actual wine and sexual sin, but pictures the world's people being swept, catch this, into the intoxication and sin of a false world religion. The intoxication of a false world religion. And on your sheet, it says, the imagery does not describe, oh, actually, I read that because I quoted that. Now, what is the world religion, if there is one? And I'll give you a hint. We didn't say it yet. So don't say power, prosperity, or pleasure, 'cause we're done with all that for now, okay? It's not on your sheet. You should be looking at me while I'm talking to you. What is the world religion, the universal world religion of today? Peter.
Paganism?
Paganism, that's a good answer. That's a very good answer. Let me come back to paganism. We talked about it last week, and I referenced it with Dan Marrow's message from the men's
Yeah,
breakfast.
humanism.
Humanism, okay? I have in my hand Humanists International. Humanists International. This is called the Guide to Humanism by Humanism International. Fascinating reading. There are a number of books and a number of editions of the Humanist Manifesto. Dan Marrow mentioned that on Saturday morning men's breakfast. Do you know how many editions there are of the Humanist Manifesto? There's 3. I didn't know that until I did the research today. And Walmart has it. There it is, the Humanist Manifesto. Okay, and this is edition 3. Okay, this and that go together. One more. What does humanism believe? What does humanism stand for? What's the heart? What's the essence? What's the soul of humanism? Well, I have one sentence that says it all. Listen to this. Humanism is a progressive philosophy of life that, without supernaturalism, affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good of humanity. Did you catch the 2 words? Without supernaturalism. No room for God, no place for God. It's everything except what?
God.
Except God. There you go. I believe in the 21st century, we already have a one world religion apart from the religious systems. The non-religious religion is secular humanism. Now, you might say to me, didn't you just contradict yourself because you said the non-religious religion, and non-religious religion cannot be because it's self-contradictory. That is false. You have to look up the definition of religion to understand that. Religion is not about God. Religion is about man's quest for God. And so, or man's quest for someone or something that's meaningful, that's purposeful outside of him or herself. Look it up. That's what religion is. And so, even atheists have religion. If you talk to an atheist, and we did this 3 years ago, we were at Pumpkin Fest. Pam and I were there 3 years ago. We've been there 3 times every year. And by the way, we got that coming up in October, and that's October 7 and 8. And the Lifesavers were Keith and I and Pastor Jensen and Mark Ensminger were Lifesavers, and we're working on that right now. And 3 years ago, behind our church booth, or tent, is it tent? Did you call it a tent?
Yeah, it's 3 booths, we have a tent, yeah.
Tent booth, was behind it was another booth, and guess what that was? That was atheists. And I went over and talked to those people a little bit. I didn't get too far with them, but I tried, okay? And even atheists have a religion. Now, they will vehemently deny that, say, no, we don't. We're atheists, and we don't believe in religion, and we don't have a religion, and we're not religious, and you're wrong, and we don't have religion. So really, what do you believe? they'll say, well, we don't believe in God. Well, there's your religion. You just put your foot in your mouth, buddy. Because if you don't believe in God, then you are anti-supernaturalism, and that's your doctrine, that's your teaching, that's your belief, and that's what religion is. So not all religion is about God, and not all religion is about church. Okay, religion can be a system of beliefs or values that one holds and follows, and in some cases promotes. So here's humanism and its aspirations. Two more sentences. Knowledge of the world is derived by, if I was asking you as a believer, how would you finish the sentence? Knowledge of the world is derived by, anybody? Derived from?
Science.
Science.
Bible. The Bible.
The Bible, thank you. I'm glad somebody said that. Because they don't say that. They say knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis. Well, where's God at? He ain't there. He's not in it. Why is that? Well, because creation didn't happen, according to them. Sentence 2, humans are an integral part of the nature, the result of unguided, I love that word, unguided evolutionary change. Well, if that isn't the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of, how do you get unguided evolutionary change? In other words, it's randomness with all capital letters. They don't even have a force. Even Star Trek says the force be with you. Well, humanism doesn't have a force because they are
That's Star
anti
Wars. That's Star Wars.
Star Wars. What did I say?
Star Trek.
Yeah, I mixed the two up. Star Wars, Star Trek. You're right, it is Star Wars. And but I like Star Trek too. But anyway, Star Wars and the force be with you. You sure Star Trek didn't have that also?
Nope.
Did not. Okay, so it's Star Wars.
Yeah, it's
But they don't. But they don't have that. They don't have anything. By the way, anybody that wants copies of this, I'll make copies before we leave tonight of this secular humanism, the guide, the book, or the aspirations in one page. Any questions on the the world, one world religion of the present day? Do you see how humanism fits in that category? Now, let me tell you this. Go ahead.
I said sadness.
Sadness,
I hate to
yeah.
be in that where, and say nobody's around and you're on your last, and nobody's there to help you, nobody.
Nobody,
Even God.
nobody.
Where's,
Because you don't,
where's your hope?
yeah, yeah.
Your hope is within yourself. That's what they'll teach you.
It's also in the antidepressants.
Hold
Everybody's
on
on
over there. I-
The people that believe that, they're on
Can you
antidepressants.
please start
Sorry.
again?
Oh.
'Cause they were talking, I didn't hear what you said.
It's,
Start from the beginning.
the pharmaceutical companies have all the antidepressants for all those people that do not have any faith. And most of them are on them.
Yeah.
I disagree with that statement sometimes.
With which statement?
Yours.
Maybe
Yeah.
not everybody.
Not everybody.
No, I said most.
Most, I agree.
But they are very depressed people.
Well,
You find some happy people too. I
can,
went
can
to
I,
college.
can I jump in here? Because I wanna clarify,
Yes.
I wanna put a little parameter on what she said. Okay, the pharmaceuticals themselves do not say that they're antidepressants, they're anti-anxieties, and they're antipsychotics, produce, lead to, or cause happiness or
Right.
wellness.
Yeah.
None of them say that. They're smart that they don't say that because that's a bigger bite than they can take because they can't say that because it doesn't happen. What you're saying is a valid point. It's a good point because a lot of people look to drugs for the answer. They look to drugs for hope, but none of the pharmaceuticals advertise in that way because they know that they can't do
Right.
that, and so they don't advertise it that way. But some people interpret it that way and look at it that way, and that's true.
Yeah.
You
They're,
see
they're
the
just,
difference though?
I know people that do not believe in God and the Bible. And they're very depressed. They have, they're not very upbeat at all. But they do take the antidepressants and stuff.
But I also know people that believe in God that
Oh, yeah,
are not always happy.
no, but, and I'm not saying that there's not a place for that.
It's hard to group
Yeah.
people. It's very
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
Can I help both of you with this?
Yeah,
I have patients like you just said, and I have
Yeah.
patients like you just said, and
Yeah.
I have a few that are kind of in the middle, okay?
Wow.
In other words, I have some born again patients who have been violated, who have been raped,
oh,
who
yeah,
have been shot,
and there's,
and they are in trauma, okay? I just signed up for 2 courses, actually 5 courses, for my continuing education for my license for 2025, and, which is mandatory, and, hold on. 11 of the 17 hours are on PTSD.
okay,
And some of you might assume, well, if you're doing that, you must treat a lot of veterans. I do not. I treat very few veterans, very few. And the reason is because veterans can go to the VA for free. If veterans come to my company, they have to pay for it, and it's costly. So I'm not treating a lot of veterans. I am treating a couple, but very few. So who am I treating with all this PTSD? I've got women who have been raped. I have men who have been shot. I have families who have had a child murdered in front of them. You don't think that's traumatic?
Yeah.
It's very, very traumatic. Remember, PTSD is not the soldier's disease. The PTSD includes the soldiers, of course, but it's not only that specific. It's way broader, and civilian PTSD is huge right now. Huge. And it's one of the number 1 problems I'm seeing in my practice, and I've been there almost 4 years in Carlisle, because of the trauma being experienced by the violation and the degradation and the violence that I'm seeing in a lot of American homes. And it's awful. It really is awful. And that's where the PTSD is coming from. So there are some that are putting their faith and hope in a drug. That's true.
Yeah.
There are some that do it. There are some who are born again, who are just experiencing trauma because they have been mistreated, they have been abused, and they have trauma as a result of it. And that's not their fault. The trauma is not their fault. The trauma is the byproduct of the sin against them by other cruel and heinous people who have done horrific things. I could tell you some things that I don't even want to say verbally. I can't say it in in this context anyway. But even if I was talking one-on-one, it's difficult to talk about because I've seen some horrific things, and in counseling. Now, if you're a police officer, state police or county police or federal or whatever, you've seen some horrible, terrible things because investigating and whatnot. And I haven't seen with my eyes, but I've heard stories and accounts of people who are traumatized by other people. And so that's where that comes from. So anyway, we're drawing a line at verse 3, and we're going to begin in the Spirit next time, in the Spirit, verse 3. And Humanism and its aspirations, Humanist Manifesto, Humanist International. And this goes to Peter's response when he said about autonomy. If there is a group that's pushing autonomy, it's this one, and it's Humanist International. And that is a big issue. And people who are pressing and pushing and seeking and promoting this autonomy are very anti-God, because God is sovereign, and as the sovereign ruler, he can and does what he will, with us because he's our Heavenly Father. Humanists hate that. If there's one doctrine humanists hate, it's sovereignty. They hate that. They hate the fact that God can or will do something contrary to their rights and their will because they believe that they are the captain of their own ship. But we know from the Bible that no man is the captain of his own ship, don't we?
Mhm.
Thank you. See you next week.
A Rolex costs between $7,000 and $55,000.
Wow!